Hello everybody and welcome back. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Christian Skoggs and what a year! 2023 has finally come to a close and thank God! It was a really rough one, especially in film and TV. As a result, it feels as if there's been a lot of doom and gloom regarding the upcoming year, and although I can understand their concerns, here at the Christian Skoggs channel, we try to stay optimistic. Some call it naivete, I call it denial, trouble yet to come. Denial is also a river in Egypt. We have fun here. But I think it's important we stop and celebrate the times where we were able to escape to that magical place that Nicole Kidman is always talking about in her AMC ad. I counted last night on Letterboxd and I think I saw 75 movies from 2023. My diary count from this year is a lot higher, but it includes rewatches and first-time watches from other years. Strictly speaking, for movies coming out this year, it was about 75. I understand this is on the lower end compared to what other people watched this year, but I think I still have a good idea of the movies that really stuck with me. Starting with some honorable mentions, we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, The Boy and the Heron, Suzume, Air, The Creator, not the best story of the year, but without a doubt had some of the best visuals of the year. Super Mario Brothers, also not a great screenplay, but I was just thrilled to see Mario and Friends properly represented on the big screen. I just wish it wasn't Chris Pratt voicing Mario, and I'm hoping for more creativity in the sequel. Blackberry was a riveting biopic, Wonka was a wholesome fun time, The Iron Claw ripped my heart out, Bottoms was hysterical, I just saw Zone of Interest a few hours ago and it almost made me throw up, Skinamarink was super scary, and Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. If there was a number 16 spot, this is where that movie would be. We gotta start at number 15 though, and our pick for that spot is Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. The most surprising movie of the year for me. It went from being a movie I actively rolled my eyes at every time I saw the trailer, to easily one of the most entertaining of the year. The screenplay is surprisingly really riveting, all the production elements look really nice, and everyone in the cast just looks like they're having a great time. I have never played a game of Dungeons & Dragons before in my life, but I feel like I should at some point. Number 14 is Todd Haynes' May December, a really disturbing story about sensationalizing trauma. It has one of the most intelligent screenplays of the whole year, one in which our protagonist dances around a gray area in her exploration to understand the abuser she is set to portray on screen, while not really getting too involved in the ongoing situation in any way. It's due to this detached nature the movie is presented in that some have been quick to call this a dark comedy, and although I would agree there is some satire to this film, it's anything but a comedy. Also, something about the slow unraveling of abuse the young boy realizes he's been facing for decades is particularly haunting to me. I hear people from film circles talking about this one, but I think I've only talked to like one person in my life who's actually watched this one. I do recommend it if you haven't seen it. It's on Netflix now. Number 13 is Taylor Swift The Eras Tour movie. Yes, it counts. If I can sit here and tell you that Stop Making Sense is one of my favorite movies of all time, we can have this here. I wasn't even really a fan of hers until I saw this movie. I was mostly impressed by how much I was getting into the songs, but also the production on display was just so impressive. All the effects, costumes, choreography, it just felt so energetic. This was definitely the type of show that you could watch and it felt like the greatest night of your life as you were watching it. I can definitely understand where the fans of Taylor Swift are coming from with their obsession with her. This was definitely a really cool show to watch on the big screen. I am jealous that I wasn't there at the actual concert, but thankful I didn't have to go through any of the bullshit going on Ticketmaster. Taylor definitely puts on a good show, and this list would be incomplete without her filmed rendition of that show. Number 12 is Barbie. This is one of two movies that contributed to the pop culture phenomenon that was Barbenheimer, and aside from being some of the most fun I've had at the movies in a long time, this was a very interesting take on the classic toy line that we all know. I think the first time I saw it, I was a little bit annoyed at its talky nature, but it really started to work more as a critique of Barbie than anything else. Think like a Nostalgia Critic episode if it actually told an interesting story and was better made. Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling are both awesome in this movie. I loved what it had to say about men and women in modern society, and I'm Just Ken is probably my pick for Best Original Song at this year's Oscars. I would say go see this, but let's face it, you probably already have. Number 11 is a controversial one, and that is Beau is Afraid. I understand this is a movie that you will either love or hate. I've seen this movie on as many worst of the year lists as I have best of the year lists, and I think it's that challenging nature that makes this an interesting watch for me. I can understand people's issues with it, but as someone who could, let's say, relate to Beau's struggle in this, I thought the way in which the story was told was interesting. My one flaw was that I felt as if this movie didn't really have an arc for the protagonist. He doesn't change in any way, which I guess is kind of the point. But when you're making a movie about anxiety, you'd think that Beau would maybe have some closure or learn to overcome his worries. I understand it's tough for people to address mental health issues already. With that being said, though, it would have been not only narratively more satisfying to show some sort of substantial arc, it could potentially help more people with anxiety overcome it. The reason I do have it on the list to begin with is because I do appreciate the massive risks this one takes, and I also just thought the film's depiction of anxiety was equally hilarious and haunting in a way no other movie has been able to depict. And I don't know, maybe just the simple depiction of anxiety will help people overcome their issues. Time will only tell the legacy this movie will leave behind. As for me, I was massively entertained with this one. I understand where people are coming from with their issues, but I think this is definitely well worth a watch. Number 10 is Celine's Songs Past Lives. This was an interesting one for me because I was mostly going into this expecting a nice romantic film that you could easily enjoy, and it mostly is, but what I found so fascinating about this one is just how much anyone can relate to the story that's being told here. Again, myself included, I saw a lot of myself in this one. It is mostly a quiet and thoughtful story, but I think the main hook of this one is the depth in which these characters are written. Multiple people around me were sobbing as the movie was ending, and I think that mostly sums up what some of you may get out of this. Number 9 is Killers of the Flower Moon. This epic crime drama brought to us from Master Martin Scorsese is everything you want in a Scorsese film. We have a career breakout role in Lily Gladstone, a haunting one in Robert De Niro, and a haunting story that needed to be told in today's day and age. The run time admittedly did get to me, and that was the main thing stopping me from checking this out again sooner, but there's so much to unpack here that I'm dying to see it again at some point. Number 8 is The Holdovers. This is from director Alex Payne, who made Sideways, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. And this movie does so well what Sideways does so well, and that is it really hooks you into the characters' lives as if you were friends with them. I felt compelled to hear about their struggles, and was mostly fine just watching them get through day by day. It's definitely the type of film that's a new Christmas classic for me. Number 7 is Poor Things. I just did a review of this, but yeah, really stellar production elements all around here, engaging story, relatable conflicts, and a unique setting that really makes this one worth your time. It should still be in theaters, don't miss this one. Leave the family at home though. Moving on to number 6 is John Wick Chapter 4, a thrilling conclusion to one of the greatest action franchises of all time. This does what every action franchise sets out to do as it nears its conclusion, and that is raise the stakes. But what this movie gets right that something like the Fast and the Furious franchise doesn't understand is that making things crazier for the characters has to occur not only on a physical level, but an emotional one too. The John Wick movies wouldn't really be anywhere without the lore surrounding the world. Everything with the Continental and the High Table is really interesting to learn about. This is something I felt was missing with the Extraction movies as well. Like, yeah, they all have really cool action and stunts and stuff, but the reason why those movies don't work is because you don't give a shit about the main character or anything else going on in his world. This film truly understood what it means to raise the stakes, and it's that sort of thinking that made this a really successful conclusion in my eyes. Number 5 is Godzilla Minus One. I also already reviewed this. I'm devastated I haven't been able to check this one out in IMAX yet. I think everything that needed to be said about this one has been said. See it right away if you haven't already. Number 4 is American Fiction. I saw this movie only a few days ago, but I truly think this is one of the very best of the year. It's the type of movie that I really couldn't think of a single flaw with as I left the theater. Everything just worked for me really well. It had a hilarious and eye-opening premise that I think a lot of critics and writers can pick up on. What's really great about this movie is that it's really not pretentious in any way. Anybody could go into this movie and find something to enjoy about it. The film makes an effort to have you understand the protagonist's life as much as possible, and these efforts definitely pay off. I can't wait to see this one again. Number 3 is Anatomy of a Fall, a film that on the surface is a standard courtroom drama, but when you dig deeper is really a family drama. I remember in my Letterboxd review saying that the fall in the title of the film is both a physical fall and one of a family. The dialogue, directing, and cinematography gave this a very documentary feel to it all, which made the movie consistently engaging. And in a time where true crime content is taking over, it's necessary that a movie like this comes out. One that comments on the overly invasive nature of true crime and just how much context we as the viewer could be missing from horrible incidents that take place. It's devastating to me that more people didn't see this one, but I'm hoping this changes soon. The Palme d'Or win for this one was well deserved. Number 2 this year was almost my number 1. This is a movie I consider to be one of the greatest ever made still, and that is Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse. In a time when superhero films are slowly beginning to die out, the Spider-Verse movies remind us that great superhero movies can still be made. This one ups both the incredible storytelling and animation of the previous installment. I love that it utilized so many different animation styles. It was really fun to watch. This movie is absolutely bursting with creativity and passion on all fronts. There's so many details to pick up on with every watch, and for those wondering, I have seen this movie 5 times now, and I own the 4K Blu-ray for this. It's truly a movie I'll never forget, and I'm excited to see the next one whenever the team is ready to share it with us. And the number 1 movie of the year, one that I think is a lot of people's number 1, but I think that simply speaks to how much this movie accomplished this year, Oppenheimer. It wasn't until the end of the year where I really began to realize just how much I like this movie. It's the type of movie that feels like an event as you're watching it. The whole thing feels gigantic and magical, yet somehow terrifying at the same time. I've been a big fan of Christopher Nolan for a long time. I've been seeing his movies in theaters since Dark Knight Rises, and having seen every single movie of his, I can confidently say that I think this is his best. It has the scale, the dialogue, and the intrigue that a Nolan movie should have, and despite this being an R-rated 3-hour historical drama, it almost made $1 billion at the box office. I truly don't think anything can be said about this movie that hasn't already been said. I think we will be looking back on this movie as one of the greatest of all time, something like Lawrence of Arabia for the modern age. And I would say see this if you haven't already, but let's face it, you already did. And that's my list for the year. I'm excited to do more of these videos into the next year. If you are new here or have stuck around at any point, thank you for doing so. I'm going to be busy, but it's going to be a good time. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, until next time.